So here I've got some paper and a pencil, and I passed these on to my brother and let him do whatever he wanted on the paper. And I'm going to take those lines and turn them into a drawing that's a little bit more my style. So let's do it. I gotta be honest, right off the bat, I had no idea what I was gonna do. The first thing I saw was like a head. So like those two dots were eyes. The half squiggle was like an open mouth. So I kind of played with that idea, but I felt like the other lines were a little too distracting and pulling away from that illustration. So I kind of erased that and tried to start something else. I was careful not to erase any of the actual squiggle lines though, because those are important. I need those. Make sure I don't lose those squiggles further on down the drawing process. I went over them all very darkly and made them really pop so that I could continue drawing. And this next idea, I thought maybe I saw a body in the squiggles. I thought if I put a head up here at the top, the squiggles that kind of create a figure 8 kind of looked like shoulders, and then the next lower larger squiggle was kind of like hips. So I tried to play out that idea by drawing like a very voluminous woman, and I thought that half squiggle in the middle, my dog's walking around, kind of looked like the knee was higher up, and then that longer, more straighter line at the bottom kind of looked like a leg pointing downwards. And to me that felt like a very heroic or like a superhero pose. So I tried to capitalize on that. I've seen this challenge done several different ways. One, my favorite, Mary Doodles, she would do a scribble in, I think, ink, and then she had to incorporate all those lines. But I thought I would do this with a pencil so that I could play around with the lines a little bit and use them more for inspiration than like a strict, hard guideline. I couldn't make up my mind though throughout the process, so you'll see me trying to incorporate specific lines and then sometimes kind of avoiding them and like basically having a little war with myself trying to decide how I was going to go about this. Something I was having a lot of trouble with was that top squiggle, like the very top squiggle. At first I tried to make it a bit more like just random vinery in the background so that, I don't know, swishy vines, that's like something people put in the background of drawings. So I was like, I'll try that, but it really didn't suit my art style. So then I tried playing around with the idea that it was hair, so it was just like a big, almost jellyfish-shaped hairstyle, and I thought that was really, really interesting, so I decided to play up that. So I ended a bunch of strands and made sure I used that top swoosh as the top line and didn't go outside of that, and I'm really happy with that. I think it's sort of a focal point on the drawing because it's so interesting, and I use those lines, and so I feel very happy about that because I didn't break any of the rules. Oh, and then this foot. I'm very proud of this foot because it has like a little toenail and it's very soft and squishy. I really like that foot. It reminds me of like feet from Lilo and Stitch. I love that art style. I don't know, just it made me happy. I'm very happy with the legs in this drawing. I think I did a pretty good job with both of them, which I'll draw later, but this one line I was having trouble with. So this is again where I was like fighting with myself whether I wanted to keep every single line exactly as it was, and this time I decided to, yes, do that. So I made that one line cutting across her belly as a belt, and then the line coming off from that into like a satchel, so it's like a built satchel. Oh, and there's that other leg I was talking about. I'm very happy with that. I like the way I shaded it as it goes off into the distance, and I feel like it helps with the perspective a little bit. I don't know, I'm very happy with that one. Just wanted to point it out. I was pretty unsure of what I was going to do with the left hand, but for the right hand, I decided to go with my go-to random open hand that's just sort of, I don't know, it's very theatrical, and it always ends up in like every single one of my drawings. There's like different variations of it, but it's also very much the same. At this point, I thought she looked a little bit naked, so I decided to add some lines to her thighs to kind of like add texture to like maybe a legging or shorts. Hadn't really made up my mind at this point. This whole drawing was very much like going with the flow and like slowly experimenting and incorporating different elements. Like I said earlier, she kind of gave me superhero vibes, but the further we go and the colors that I choose, it starts going more to like the super villain. So even though she's got a very powerful and confident stance, it definitely speaks a little bit more hero to me. But the colors that I choose later on, they start telling a different story, and I think this whole drawing is very cool in a specific way that it slowly becomes something else. Like it started as those lines and those squiggles, but as I played around with it, it turned into something completely different, and I think that's just the whole theme of today's video, I guess. Now the bottom squiggle was the thing I was avoiding the most, but I decided to just turn it into hair, but it looked a little weird, so I added more strands coming off of that to really sell that hair look. It doesn't really match the hairstyle that I had on top, that like jellyfish thing. So I had to really try and push that by just drawing as many strands as I could and incorporating them like basically all over the piece to like say, yeah, she has a mullet, not just short hair with a random hair piece in the background. Then I just added some more details by finishing off like that one hand and then adding some more details to her face, and it was time to add some color. So that I could test the colors out before adding them to the actual drawing, since this is traditional and you don't really get second chances, I created a miniature version of the drawing, of course far less detailed so that it could be quicker, and then I started adding some colors on top of that to see if the colors I had in my mind matched the way they'd actually look in real life. I wasn't 100% with the original colors that I chose, so I did swatch some more, just like lower on the page to see what they looked like on paper. And I did end up going with a color scheme that was similar to my original idea, but more cohesive. And those are the colors that I chose right there on the right, and now I'm starting to color. The first thing that I colored was the hair, and I decided to give it that one purple tone that I had chosen. I had two different purples for this drawing that I thought fit well together. So for the one, this is a bit on the pinker side, and I used that for like closer to the scalp, but the hair ends up being a lot more different than I had anticipated later on, because I keep like trying to incorporate more of the colors throughout the piece, and that kind of fits that theme that I was mentioning earlier, where I'm kind of experimenting as I go. This whole drawing is just about trying different things and seeing what'll fit, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but I have to keep going. And this is one of those things that didn't quite work out, even though I swatched them all out and I thought they looked good together. I just wasn't crazy about the placement of this tan color. It kind of gives me Xena warrior vibes, warrior princess, whatever. And I'm just not crazy about it. I feel like it just doesn't really fit with the design of the character, so I do end up going over that later with like a neutral gray to tone it down, and that's when it really starts speaking villain to me. Oh, and here I tried to make these like sort of cylinder shapes look like they were made of metal, but that's another thing that I don't like, so I change it later. Oh, I guess I changed it immediately. I like it a lot better with that solid dark gray. I just think it fits better. Oh, and you can't forget the blushies. So I like to add a little blush to like the nose and the cheeks, and sometimes like the fingers or the elbows. I didn't go too crazy with this illustration, but it's still there. And looking at it, I realized I needed to incorporate some more of that dark gray throughout the illustration. It felt a little stagnant, so I started adding it to the hair, like maybe she's originally had black hair and she's bleached and dyed it to be purple. So I tried some streaks around like her face, and I thought that looked kind of interesting and also like pointed towards the face, because the way this drawing's laid out, the head is squished very like close to the top of the drawing, and there's a lot of white space at the bottom, and it's a little awkward. So by adding some of this dark gray up near the face, it kind of helps the focal point rise up a little bit, and I think the illustration is better for it. And then I realized I wanted to tone down that tan color, bring a little saturation out of it, so I went over it with that gray, and this, I was getting a lot of like Anakin, Revenge of the Sith vibes. So that's when I decided, I think I'm gonna have to try and take this like full supervillain, like as far as I can with what I've already got. And I thought, what better way to do that than to try and add some green, some nice supervillain, Maleficent green vibes. I approached it first with a white Posca pen, hoping that maybe I could color over that with a light green, because since the drawing is very dark in the center of the illustration, I thought it would be very difficult to add green on top of that without it blending with the other colors, so I went over that with like a Posca pen, almost as like a whiteout, so that I could add more colors on top. And while that was drying, I decided to fill in all that white space at the bottom of the drawing with some green potions. I don't know, again, the experimenting, see what works, see what doesn't, theme of today. I thought since she's like floating, maybe she has some kind of magic powers. And then she has that satchel, and it made me think maybe she holds potions in the satchel. So what would a potion wizard be without random potion to fly over? Or it could be like a swamp or something. I don't know, but I do think it adds that green to the drawing that really pushes the super like villain vibes. Maybe not so much super villain, but like just fantasy villain. And I like that about it. I think it really, really helped with that mood. Oh, and to bring even more green, I thought I'd take that Posca pen again and add light illuminating from the satchel so that, you know, yeah, there's some like magic potions like hanging out in there and they're like trying to break free. So I just created this like starburst of light illuminating from the small crack opening of the satchel. And then once I was sure that was dry, I started going over it with like my lightest green Copic marker, but it didn't show as much as I wanted, so I did try using a bit of a darker color, and that definitely spoke a little bit more green to me, but it didn't work as well as it worked in my head, so it requires a little bit of imagination. Then to really sell the magic potion villain vibe, I added a bunch of like magic glitter and sparkle shapes all over the place. I even tried using a green highlighter to see if that would work. You know, I tried. What I like most about this challenge is that anyone could have looked at those same scribbles and saw something entirely different or built it into something entirely different. And even if I had used different colors, it could have looked differently. And I feel like it really taught me a lesson about how many different decisions go into every single drawing, and each of them can lead you in a completely different direction and like spiral you out into like this other world of inspiration. And I think that's really, really cool. And like, I don't know, I've never really thought about it before, and now it's like at the forefront of my mind, and I'm like, wow, I never realized that. That's pretty obvious. Anyway, I do want to thank you guys for watching and seeing what I made with that scribble. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys all next week, and I hope you have a delicious evening full of waffles. Bye!